This is New Mexico Frontiers, presented by Veris Research.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on this edition of New Mexico Frontiers, the digital series. I'm Chad Brummett. If you have watched the show before, Vitazi AI, Circular Genomics, you may recognize the names of these companies. So they are working to help using technology. Vitazi AI, for example, using AI to help detect retinopathy, diabetic retinopathy, in a quicker timeline. Same thing with Circular Genomics, helping people that are suffering from depression understand whether or not their medication is working on a much more condensed timeline. This is all great stuff. It is happening here in New Mexico. And a lot of it is due to the man sitting across from me helping cultivate these businesses, Stuart Rose, someone who is very familiar with entrepreneurship, innovation, and incubating businesses. Stuart, you are the founder of the BioScience Center and Fatpipe New Mexico. First of all, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate having you here in our studio. A lot of times I've come out to y'all, so it's great to have you here at our home. Before we unpack a little bit about these incubators and what they do, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this whole world of helping establish new businesses.
Well, it probably started during my career when I was working for big companies. Okay. I was always a bit of a maverick, and it was because I was more entrepreneurial than someone who typically works for a large company in a large bureaucracy. I would shake things up. I would say, hey, I think there's a better way to do this. I would usually get beaten up because of it, but it was sort of natural for me. And so as I left the big companies and started my own companies, I continued that, and I was able to do it much more successfully. Then when I sold my last company, I said there's an opportunity just to make everyone into an entrepreneur. And that everyone's not suited to be an entrepreneur, but a lot of people are if they're willing to take the risks. And so I decided to help reduce those risks by helping them as best I can.
Gotcha. Okay. So the two incubator enterprises that we're talking about today, Fatpipe New Mexico and the BioScience Center, which came first?
BioScience Center came first.
BioScience Center came first.
So I had a company here. When I came to New Mexico in 2007, when I bought a company that was here, that was in the pharmaceutical business. We turned it around and we ended up selling it, but in 2014. But in that time period, I discovered all this technology that was here. And I would run into people from Sandia or from UNM or even New Mexico Tech or New Mexico State. And I'd run into all these people who were doing work in the biosciences. But they tended not to know each other or really not know the work that they were doing. And most of them had no idea how to take their technology that was in the biopharmaceutical space and make it into a company. Right. They were just clueless. And so when I sold the company, I decided that I was going to start a place that could become the focal point for where all these people could meet and talk to each other. And that's what led to the creation of the BioScience Center. And I found a building that was empty, that had labs in it, and I had to spend a little bit to upgrade the labs, but I did that. And then some companies, just people with ideas initially, but that became companies, moved in.
And that's where Vitazi AI, Circular Genomics, those are just two of the companies that you have helped build and cultivate. When it comes to companies that the BioScience Center is looking to help get off the ground, what are you looking for? What sort of metrics or what qualities are you looking for in these entrepreneurs to say, yeah, I'm going to help bring them on and we're going to help get this thing off the ground?
Three things only. Okay. And I tend to be different than most people who have incubators. Because I don't think I can judge whether your technology is going to be successful or not. Okay. I know a lot about a lot of technologies, but I don't know enough, and I don't know the marketplace for anything.
Okay.
So I've seen too many companies that were technically successful but failed as a business because they didn't understand their markets. Okay. So that's one of the things we teach the entrepreneurs about, understanding your market, because it may view your product differently than you do.
Right.
So what I look for is three things. One, you're an entrepreneur in a startup. You have to be really committed. I mean, that means often fighting with your spouse because you're working 7 days a week, or you're working from 9 in the morning until midnight because there's an experiment going on. You have to be really committed, and I want to make a judgment. Do you understand the commitment you're making when you're a lone entrepreneur? So that's number one. The second thing, are they credible? So if you came to me and said, I want to send a rocket to outer space, I would probably start challenging whether you have the skill sets to do that. Okay. So, and very often someone who doesn't appear on the surface to have those skills will, but most of the time they don't. And then the third thing is mostly will they listen? I mean, I've made lots of mistakes. Other entrepreneurs have made lots of mistakes. Do you want to repeat the same mistakes that I made? Why not listen to me, and I can tell you what mistakes to avoid. You'll make other ones, but let's avoid the ones that I know that are out there. And so that's how I try and help the entrepreneurs. I also have a good sense of when an entrepreneur is trying to raise money, what will appeal to investors and what won't.
Okay.
And so I try and help them organize their sales pitch when they're trying to raise capital. I help them understand what an investor is thinking.
Okay. That's all really great to know. And thinking from the entrepreneurial perspective, sometimes, as you said, we can get so laser focused on the work that we're doing, we may not understand what the outside world is seeing.
That's right.
Particularly with bioscience, why did you choose this for, aside from the fact that it's in the name, why did you choose bioscience in this sort of focus on industry, as opposed to looking for coffee shops with the BioScience Center, or why this?
Oh, my background. Okay. So I have a PhD in chemistry, but my career was spent in the pharmaceutical business.
Okay.
And the pharmaceutical business is changing constantly with all these new technologies that are all bioscience related. And it's pharmaceuticals, it's medical devices, it's diagnostics. The technology is changing very, very rapidly. And so it's a perfect place for an entrepreneur with a new idea to start.
Gotcha. Is New Mexico a good place to be developing
Outstanding.
bioscience?
New Mexico's great at developing technologies, as good as most anywhere in the country. If I look at how much New Mexico spends in research and development broadly, not just the biosciences, we're probably number 7 of all regions in the country.
Really?
Even if it includes Silicon Valley and Boston and New York and Chicago, all those other places, we're probably, in my best estimate, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
So we're spewing out ideas and patents and technology all the time. Okay. And it's actually increasing, not decreasing. And that's because of the national labs, it's because of the Air Force Research Laboratory and our 3 research universities. Yeah. So there's just, we're a place to harvest ideas. And so it's a perfect place to do startups.
Okay. We'll probably come back to bioscience here in a second, but let's talk about the other incubator, Fatpipe New Mexico. Tell us about this and how it differs from the BioScience Center.
Okay. The difference is largely we do much of the same thing at Fatpipe. We call it actually more of a co-working space than an incubator, but the reality is it's more of an incubator as well than most co-working spaces. And that's because we focus on helping the entrepreneurs. But the entrepreneurs there tend to be non-technical.
Okay.
So it could be a real estate agent, or it could be an insurance person, or it could be, sometimes we just get drop-ins from out of state. They need a place with high-speed internet that's more secure than a hotel. And so people will come there for that. People come there for all kinds of reasons. We've had experiences where a husband and wife team were both working from home, and they didn't like being together all the time and dealing with the dog and the kids and everything else. So they rented a seat. Okay. They decide every day which one of them is going to come into the office. Wow. But then they get to socialize with other entrepreneurs who are there as well. And so it's a different environment because we don't have labs, and it's much more social.
Okay. Yeah. But do you think that that's an important part of with that philosophy and that idea of iron sharpening iron? of getting these entrepreneurs in there, even if they're from different disciplines, different industries, different walks of life, but just the fact that they're in there, does it help them kind of energize them?
It's the most valuable component, actually.
Really?
Because you want to interact with other people. Other people have different ideas. They'll tell you where you're wrong if you want to be told.
Right.
They'll give you new ideas, and most significantly, they'll give you their access to their network. They'll make introductions for you. So maybe it's to a lawyer, maybe it's to someone with money to invest. You just never know what's going to come out of the blue. We've had two companies actually, that were small software companies, and they ended up officially merging because now they were bigger and could bid on bigger contracts. And that wouldn't have happened because they would have never met, unless they just bumped into each other at a pizza party that we had.
Sure, and you can maybe leave that up to fate if you want, you can go to Fatpipe and really do something.
Yeah, we like to encourage those events. So we'll have a bagel breakfast or a pizza party or a potluck or bring in a speaker on something or another. And it gets the audience all together and they get to interact.
Okay. Now, are there certain prerequisites or requirements? As we were talking about the BioScience Center, there are 3 things that you're looking for with a potential, company that you bring on. Are there similar sort of requirements, prerequisites that you're looking for someone renting a seat at Fatpipe, or is it pretty much just if you want the seat, it's there?
If you want the seat, it's there.
Okay.
And we like to give flexibility, so you can come in for a day.
Okay.
You can get a lower rate if you book 2 days a week for a month, and it's even cheaper per day if you book the whole month. So but no, we don't judge people coming into there.
Okay.
And they have to decide whether they want to take advantage of our advice or not. Some people just come in, use the space, and leave.
Okay.
So it's a mix.
But it does have the opportunity, if you've got that entrepreneur and they're looking for, some guidance, some wisdom.
Always happy to help. Yes.
Okay, that's great
exactly
to know.
Right. Yes.
If someone watching this right now, maybe they're bioscience, maybe they are that coffee shop, and they don't know where to start on getting their business going, what advice would you give to that budding entrepreneur? What sort of things do they need to get their business off the ground, in your experience through working in a variety of industries?
It doesn't apply only to bioscience. It applies to pretty much anything. And that commitment is a huge piece. But probably the most important piece is understanding who your customers are, how they're going to find you, and why they will give you X amount of money for whatever product or service that you're offering. Is it worth? Are you going to, if I want to charge for my consulting services, is it worth $1,000 an hour to you?
Right.
Or is it worth $10 an hour to you?
Right.
You have to know that to know whether you have a viable business or not.
Okay. Learning that, figuring that out, what do you think is the best way to do it? Is it really just talking with other people, bringing and getting that, you may not want to hear that you're wrong, but you got to hear that you're wrong?
That's exactly right. So you when you have your idea, you think you know who your target customers are.
Yeah.
Let's say you're developing a new device that's going to help with wrist pain. So who's your customer?
Well, it's me. Because I got wrist pain.
Yeah.
Me for sure.
Okay, so maybe it's you, but are you going to give me the money? Or are you going to buy my product? Or is your insurance company going to buy my product?
Okay.
Or if you're a part of a hospital, how does the hospital decide to buy your product? You have to know who is the actual payer. Right. Because that's the person you have to convince that your product is worth whatever it is that you're charging.
Okay.
So for example, if I've got a new cure for cancer, very few doctors have the ability to say, yeah, I'll buy that, because it has to go through the hospital.
Okay.
And so it's really crucial to understand who that customer is. And too many entrepreneurs think if I build it, they will come. Right. And that rarely works.
See, we've seen Field of Dreams far too many times. That's the problem. Just playing Field of Dreams for that.
That's right.
Throughout all your experience, Stuart, is there one or maybe a few common mistakes that you see either in bioscience or just regular business as people are starting up? Do you see mistakes repeated by various people? That you can sort of raise a red flag and say, all right, guys, this is mistake number one, don't do it.
The first one is too much focus on technology.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because as I say, if I build it, they will come doesn't necessarily work. You have to understand how the market views your product.
Okay.
The second thing is they tend to be undercapitalized. And by that I mean they don't have enough money to last until they can become profitable. And that's pretty common with restaurants. Okay.
Really?
You get this idea, I make great food. Great food isn't enough to have a good restaurant.
Yeah.
You have to know how to manage your supply. You have to prevent theft. You have to, and it's going to take some time until you can build the clientele to cover all your costs. Too often, people will start a restaurant and not have enough capital to last what might be a year before you can actually make enough money to pay all your expenses and show a profit.
Wow.
So those tend to be the mistakes that people make.
Gotcha. Now, we had mentioned at the beginning a couple of graduates, I guess we could say, Vatazi AI, Circular Genomics, because they have gone on. They started with BioScience Center and have gone on to develop their own places. Tell us a little bit about what it was like working with them, because as I said, we've covered it here on New Mexico Frontiers. We have seen the products that they are developing and working on, and it really is phenomenal. What was your experience like working with them?
It's fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. You see some guy with an idea. One example, I'm going to create a 3D printer that can print circuits that can be implanted into the body for things like a pacemaker.
Wow.
Okay? So you see that happen. And he's got this great idea and this really interesting technology, and he knows how to print things that are what I'll call biocompatible. In other words, they can go into the body and not be rejected. Is there a market? Well, that became a challenge for this guy. Okay, so then you have to pivot. Okay. And most companies pivot because they suddenly realize the market they thought was there is not there. And what he pivoted into making 3D printers for specialized applications.
Okay.
He graduated from the BioScience Center, and now he has a factory here with, I don't know how many employees, but in the 20 or 25 employees, I think. So that's the kind of thing that happens. And when you see that entrepreneur turn the corner, learn to pivot. My original idea wasn't right. You have to admit that.
Yeah.
All right? You have to recognize it. You have to admit it and say, well, what do I do now? And he came up with something. And you see that happen fairly often.
Wow. That I can only imagine what that's like, being able to see someone take that note, because I would also, the other side of it is frustration if they're not taking it, and the enterprise just kind of goes downhill, whereas you can see it kind of take off and lift off. That's
so another one.
Rewarding.
There's a company at the BioScience Center now called Gills, G-I-L-Z.
Okay.
Okay. This is a guy who was with the State Department, I think, or the Foreign Service, in somewhere in Africa, a remote section of Africa. And the only way you get around in those places is on a motorcycle.
Okay.
But the vehicles there had no controls, no emission controls at all. So you're breathing all this junk that's coming out of the tailpipe in the car. And so he created for himself a mask that he could attach to his helmet. Okay? And with the filter system that would remove some of the particles that were coming from the other vehicles. When he came back, he said, I think there's a market for that. I think motorcycle people here might like something like that. And so he got together with some other scientists we gave him to improve the efficiency of the filter systems, and added one that can be even motorized so you can clean the air as you're breathing it.
Oh, wow.
All right. And he created a new kind of motorcycle helmet with that as part of it.
Holy moly.
And then he found a way to put it on. If you already have a helmet, you can attach. He has one you can attach to your existing helmet. Okay, really cool idea. Is that the market? How big is the motorcycle market for people? Well, it's reasonable. But he then said, well, what about firefighters? Okay, who else needs to be able to breathe filtered air in their workplace maybe?
Yeah.
And so this market, which started out as a motorcycle market, suddenly became bigger, and it takes vision to be able to see those opportunities.
And I think also a bit of maybe humility for understanding, because I can imagine that you may have this idea. Well, I don't want to. No, this is the idea that I want, and understanding that maybe this brilliant idea it's not brilliant yet, but it's gonna get there with the help of other people, with that
That's
collaboration.
The key. You want to talk to as many other people as you can.
Because he wouldn't have thought of that.
You
First
wouldn't have thought of that and
responders.
said, somebody, hey, there's a volunteer firefighter he was talking to one day about his motorcycle. And he said, I could use this at work.
Yeah,
That's the way it happens.
That
So
is
you want to talk
fascinating.
to as many people as you can.
Okay. If someone watching this right now, say they are a bioscience entrepreneur and they're interested in talking with you about potentially coming on and collaborating with you, what is the process to get that going?
2 ways. One, they could just contact me directly, Stuart at thebiosciencecenter.com.
Okay.
But secondly, the state economic development department has started a program. And if you sign up for their program, they'll refer you to me.
Okay.
And what that allows the state to do is see all the activity that's happening in the state in the biosciences. And we're booming. I mean, the number of investments that are occurring in the biosciences and other technologies in the state is just outrageously high.
Really?
It's increasing almost monthly. Okay.
Wow.
We're seeing more and more startups, and more recently we're seeing it in quantum. When I say quantum to most people, they think quantum computing. Right? Well, there is such a thing as quantum biology. And that's going to change the way of the future, the way healthcare is delivered and the way we create drugs and other devices. It's going to change the world long term. It's probably 10, 20 years away.
Yeah.
But we're starting here in New Mexico to do that kind of a thing. So contact the State Economic Development Department, edd.gov. New Mexico maybe, or something like that.
Okay.
But you can find it, Economic Development Department of State of New Mexico, and they have a program for entrepreneurs that will, whether it's in the biosciences or advanced computing or advanced manufacturing or water technologies or aerospace, they have programs that can lead you to mentors who can help you with your technology and make it into something real.
Wow. That's really good to know, because I know that the quantum, the move from making this a quantum hub, the Southwest becoming a quantum hub, there are a lot of stakeholders that are really trying to make that happen, and thinking of quantum bioscience and quantum biology and how that's going to work. I've got all these sci-fi movies running through my head now that could potentially become science fact down the road.
And they can start here, yes.
That is so exciting. Well, Stuart, again, always a pleasure talking with you about this. It really is exciting to see. I know, I had a personal investment, especially with circular genomics, having, people that have dealt with depression, that is something I've dealt with. And it's so exciting to see that these really potentially earth-shattering, life-changing discoveries are happening right here in the land of enchantment.
Right here in the land of enchantment.
It's so exciting. Stuart, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Keep up the exceptional work. It is so vital.
We're having fun. We're going to keep doing it.
That's the thing, having fun. Really appreciate it. And we appreciate you for watching. Again, if you do not have the KRQE Now app on your Fire Stick, your Roku, your Apple TV, do yourself a favor, download that now. You can also find other episodes on KRQE.com. Until next time, I'm Chad Brummett. This has been New Mexico Frontiers, the digital series.